On this episode, I talk automated assessments and a way to analyze student data quickly and efficiently. This is Edtech Library episode number 6, Forms and Flubaroo. Hello and welcome to Edtech Library. My name is Mike, and on this episode I'm going to dive into a Google app for education called Google Forms. And I'm also going to talk about how Google Forms, in conjunction with a script called Flubaroo, can help you automate assessments and also digest and analyze student data very quickly. So in this particular episode, I'm going to break it down to the 3 parts. Now, in terms of Google Forms, I haven't yet created a video about that particular application in Google Drive. So I'm going to start with a brief tutorial on how Google Forms works, how it can be used, and what it looks like. The next step in this process will be to look at how we can distribute these forms and how students actually take the forms. And then last but not least, we're going to look at the results that these forms can produce for us in Google Sheets. And if you're not familiar with Google Sheets or you want to learn more about it, I did create a basic tutorial video, which is now going to be carded here. And so if you want to take a look at that, you can, but we're going to take a look in Sheets and add specifically a script called Flubaroo. Flubaroo is actually going to is able to, I should say, help us digest the results of student learning. Hello and welcome to Edtech Library. My name is Mike, and on this episode I'm going to be talking about Google Forms and a great script that runs through Google Sheets called Flubaroo. Now together these two can help you create an automated assessment which is going to allow you to quickly and easily digest student... Hello and welcome to Edtech Library. My name is Mike, and on this episode I'm going to talk about Google Forms and a great script that runs through Google Sheets called Flubaroo. Now together these two items can help you make an automated assessment that's not only going to help you grade small assessments quickly, but it's also going to help you analyze student results with great efficiency. So I'm going to break this episode down into 3 parts. The first part is going to look at Google Forms and how the Google Forms platform works, how it operates, how you can create a form. And then the second step then will be to look at how is this form going to be used by your students. Last but not least, we'll look at the results of those forms and how the results can then be combined with a script called Flubaroo in order to create an automated assessment. And then we'll also look at, along with that, how those results from that assessment can be used to help you analyze student learning. So in this particular episode, as I said, we'll break it down into 3 steps. Let's get started with step 1 by taking a look at the form.
So here we are in the Google Drive, and in order to create a new form, it's very simple. Much like the other applications, all you have to do is click on New, and then just go down to the More option here, and you'll be able to find Google Forms very quickly. So by clicking on a form, I'll actually create a new form, and it looks something like this. Now, I've already created a form that's going to, oh, that's interesting. So actually, this is a pretty opportune time. Google Forms actually just made a huge change to the actual platform and the way it works and the way it looks. So here's actually the old version of Google Forms, and the new version actually looks and feels a lot better. So I've actually made a pre-prepared survey which will allow us to move through this tutorial a little bit quicker, and we'll take a look at that one. And so here we can see the one that I've already prepared, and so it actually looks a lot different than the previous version did. So the first thing you'll do is when you get a new form, it's going to ask you to create a title, so I'll put in a simple title. And then after that, typically what you'll have then is just a blank slate. Now if we want to create a new question of any type, over here on the right hand side is where we want to do that. This plus sign is going to allow you to create a new type of question. Now I'm not going to add one here because typically when you start with your survey, if you're going to use this as a assessment of some sort, especially with Flubaroo, you want to have the student name on there. So I always create a question, the first question, as a student name, and I'll show you how to do that below. But here we have just a few sample questions I created along with a picture. As you can see from my dashboard here or sidebar, you can actually add images to your quizzes. You can also add video through YouTube to a quiz. and then I'll take a look at these other two then shortly. So down here, I'm going to add a new question. So if I click on the last question I created, I want to add a new one though. So if I click on the plus sign, it's going to allow you to add a new type of question. And so here it is, and we can see what this question looks like. And the automatic default for any question is a multiple choice one. So you can simply type in your question, and then you can add your answers. And you can add as many answers as you want to your results. Typically, with a Flubaroo type script and with an assessment through this kind of platform, I like to keep it simple. I don't do too many summative assessments in this format. However, I do use these formative assessments from time to time. They're quick and easy to use. A few questions, multiple choice, maybe fill in the blanks, and then you can run the script, and it works beautifully for providing you some great student data. So this is just one type of question. Over here on the right hand side, I can change it. If I would choose, like, say, a short answer, you'll notice the format of the question changes. Short answer is going to be for a short answer text, and so this is where the student would provide their answer. I can choose a different type as well. I'm just going to move this up so my webcam isn't quite in the way. I can choose a paragraph. Paragraph is going to provide a long answer text, so there's more space here for students to respond. You also have a checkbox, which is similar to a multiple choice, although it allows you to select multiple answers. So instead of just choosing one answer, multiple choice will not allow you to select more than one. Checkboxes will, though. You also have a drop-down menu similar to a multiple choice or checkbox. You can create a linear scale, which we actually passed one of those questions before. And here you can add different labels. So if we want to say 1 is great and 5 not so great, we can add those labels in here, so when the question appears, the students will be able to select from along this scale, and you can adjust that scale too as well. So if I want to go 1 to 8, we can make that happen. There's also a multiple choice grid. Now this one's pretty interesting. This one is going to create a grid option, and it's going to allow you to create rows and columns. So what will happen is the rows are going to be, so let's say for example we wanted to create some sort of a survey. In fact, I created one of these recently. So perhaps on the left-hand side we have your favorite type of device. So we have a smart board, let's say a Chromebook, and also iPod or iPad. On the right-hand side here we have how often you use it, maybe every day, some days, and then never. So what would happen is when this is done, the question would appear as a grid. So if I actually go to the preview, going back to the top here on our dashboard, we have this little eye, pretty simple, the preview. We can see what that looks like. And there you can see what the grid question samples as. It's pretty great for like I said, survey purposes. You could also use this too if you have, like, for example, multiple ideas. Like we just learned about Hinduism and Buddhism in our class, and I provided a couple different definitions, and some of the terms cross over between two religions, and so the students were able to decide if it was Hinduism, Buddhism, or both. So that's just some of the sample questions that you have available to you. And then you can also put date and timestamps in there, which I don't usually put those because when the survey results come back to you, they automatically have the date and timestamp to it. So I'm going to delete this question because I have some results that I already prepared for Flubaroo script, which we'll run in a little bit. But also on the dashboard here too, you can add sections to this. So if I was down here and I wanted to create a new section, all I had to do is click on that those two bars there. It's actually going to create a new section of the test. So that's a nice little feature as well. And you can create headings. I keep losing my script because I'm up here. So here you can see the 2 letters. It's going to allow you to add a title. So if you want to title that new section of the test, you can do that very easily. Just click on it and you'll see a new title appears. So these last couple questions fall in a different section. So it's pretty easy to use, very intuitive to set up. Now some of the settings that are available too, you can change the color palette by clicking on this. As I showed you, the preview will show you what the form actually looks like. And then the last button is your settings here. Now the settings is going to allow you to do a couple different things. You can click this so students can only select or submit one response at a time. That will require student login, and that can get kind of messy too, especially if you are not a Google Apps for Education district, because sometimes it won't allow students in to see these unless they sign in with a district issued account. Sometimes students can submit multiple responses. Can they edit their response? There's a progress bar in the bottom corner that shows students how far along they are in the test, and you can also shuffle the questions too. So when we're ready to actually send this off, all we have to do is click on the send button, and sending it's going to give us a few different options. Typically, I don't like to send it via email. I like to work through Google Classroom or possibly even the school website if you have one, or class website. To do that, this is the mail option. I want to click on this link, and it's going to provide me a link, which I can even shorten, so that I can just simply click and drag this or copy and paste it into wherever I need to, whether that be Classroom or something else. So in order to take this quiz, I would need that link, and once I have that link, I'm able to take the survey. So here's what the survey actually looks like, and I'm going to take this real quick and just show you how easy it is to use. So here is a test subject, and I'm going to answer these questions real quick. You can see my picture, and then we can also add our responses for the rest. Clearly my tie is yellow. And then you can also add an email address too, and this is a really cool feature. If you add an email address, and if your students have an email address, you can actually use Flubaroo to send the grades that students get on their assessment back to them right away. So I'm going to add in an email address here. And so I submitted it. And now I can submit another response because I allowed that option to occur. I can also uncheck that in the settings so that students can only submit one response. But if I exit out of this, I can now see the responses. And this is one of the nice changes that they made. So before, you actually had separate sheets and also surveys, or forms I should say, so that you kind of had to dig to find sometimes the responses. Here it's actually bundled with the Google form itself. And one of the other cool features that they just added in here is I can see the 5 responses that are given to me. Now I can close the window, so if I wanted to open this up for like a homework assignment at night, you could. By simply turning this off, it'll say that it's no longer accepting responses. Here, now I am again. These are some of the responses I received, and Google Forms actually aggregates all this data, so I can see what responses the students had, how many, by percentage, which is a really great way to just take a look at some of the thoughts that students might have. And we haven't even gone to the script yet, and we're already getting some very useful feedback from the system. So I can see all my questions as well as the email addresses for the students who submitted their responses. Now in order to run Flubaroo, we're going to have to head to the actual spreadsheet, and to do that all we do is click on this icon here. Now I've opened the the sheets where the responses go to, and you can see here that the responses are all labeled. We have a timestamp. We also have the name of the student and each of their answers. Okay, so you'll see the top is frozen off for us, which is great, so that way if we have 30, 40, 50 responses, I can just scroll down and continue to see them. Now, if we're going to run the run the script Flubaroo on this particular sheet, then we have to add it. Now, I've already done that, but to get Flubaroo, you just click on Add-ons and Get Add-ons. And here it is. It shows up pretty quick. It's a great one, so free. I do want to let Flubaroo run on my drive, so you can see it's working in progress. So now that the script is available to us, we can actually run it. And so I'm going to do that. I click on Add-ons, and under Flubaroo, we want to grade the assignment. So the first thing you're going to get then when you want to grade the assignment is all of the different questions then show up. And we can choose whether or not we want to, or how we want to assess each question. So the first question was their name, and so Flubaroo identifies that as having identified the student. So I'm going to leave it as that. Now, normal grading is going to basically mean that it'll use the key and score the answer of the student against what the key says. So that would be the normal grading option. We do have some other options which we can skip grading. We can also grade it by hand, which is a new feature. Really useful if you're doing, let's say, maybe a few different questions and then you have like a short answer. You can use that option and grade the short answer separately. So it's a really great feature to have. You can also adjust the point values, so maybe I'll make this one 3 points. Now the last question here, we have this guy included. So you'll see the last question here is also my email address. I didn't want to put these in here, but they showed up. That was the grid question we had before. And this email address is also going to identify the student. So I'm going to leave it as that. And I'm going to tell these to not grade. So I'm going to say skip grading on all of those. And we'll hit continue. Now it's going to ask me which of these is going to be the key. And I usually like to take the test or do this before the students do, so that way the key will be the first one. But all we got to do is find it, and then I hit continue. And now it's going to grade my assignment. So I'm going to disappear here for a minute. And so now it's been complete, and the grade is done. So all I have to do here is just scroll down a little bit to see the responses. You'll see the top is automatically locked in, and what it gives us here is a summary, the points that were available, the average points scored, the number of submissions, and the number of low scoring questions. So on here in the bottom I can see that we have our results for each question. Apparently test subject 4 did really well. They scored 100%. Other students not so much. What happens is automatically percentages that are below 50, or sorry, even on the lower end, you can see 50s and even 60s. Below a 70, I think it is, shows up in red. And we can scroll across here, and if we do, you'll see questions that were scored with a point receive a 1, or a 3 in this case. And the ones that were not scored properly or were incorrect are zeros. Now the really great thing about this script is it's going to allow you to analyze student data very quickly, because it's going to bounce back to you in orange all the questions where more than 50% or 50%, or I should say more, students got the question wrong. So now I can see, like, clearly there were some holes in some of my teaching, or maybe the students didn't quite get what I was trying to say. Maybe I have to reteach, or maybe the way the question was worded properly or was improper. So there's a lot of things that we can get from this. It's very simple, very easy to use, and it grades it instantaneously, which is really, really nice. We've seen how this analysis can work and how this grading is set up. As I said, this is something that's really quick and easy to use, and I talk about in episode 5 and some of the other episodes that efficiency is really one of the main reasons why we want to adopt some of these EdTech products, and this is no exception. Instantaneously I can find out results from my class, small group, individuals, or even an entire grade level, which I've done before, and this script will run time after time after time. I've had 0 crashes in terms of the script running and not working, and so it works very, very well. Strongly recommend using it. Now the last little bit too, as I said, with the student email addresses, you can actually email these results out to them. Unfortunately, I think my screen's going to be cut off a bit here, but if I click on Flubaroo script again and share grades, it's going to allow me to run the rest of the script, which is going to send students through that email address column. So it's asking me which column is the email address to send it to, and then you can share via email. And then you could also add to them, if you want to include the answer key, the list of questions and scores, and it can also even include some feedback. So, great job, even though it wasn't such a great job. And then on the bottom here is where you just click to send it off to those students. So again, very easy share feature included. So to finish up this episode, let's head to the recap.
So now that you've seen what Flubaroo has to offer, as well as Google Forms, just some closing thoughts. I think Google Forms is a great place to begin to help you gather and aggregate data through either surveys, assessments, questionnaires. It's a really easy tool to use, and it blends seamlessly into the Google Drive, which is another great option, especially if you're Google Apps for Education School District. I really enjoy using Flubaroo as a formative assessment. It can work as a summative assessment, but if you're trying to target higher level questioning, Flubaroo is not going to allow you to do that very easily, or it won't really improve your efficiency there. So I use it quite often as a formative tool where you'll be able to assess student learning throughout a project, an activity, an assignment of sorts, maybe even a unit as a quiz. And it works very, very, very well. The script never fails to run. It doesn't crash. It doesn't overload. And so you're able to get that data very quickly, very easily. And also that analysis piece is huge because you can see very quickly where student learning has not occurred, where there's gaps, what you may have missed. Maybe even the way questions were worded was a little bit awkward or didn't quite make sense to them. So it's a great little tool that you can use to not only analyze student data, but also your own work too as a teacher. So it helps you to be reflective as you can see what went well, what didn't go well. So all in all, I have to give Google Forms and Flubaroo especially a thumbs up. It's a really great tool to use. I highly recommend checking it out. So as for episode 6, Forms and Flubaroo, that's it. My name is Mike, and thanks for watching Edtech Library. Be sure to check out the description where you'll find links to both of those items, Google Forms and also Flubaroo, in the description. You'll also find my Twitter and Facebook links down there too. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and also share and subscribe to the channel if you're looking for more Edtech. Really excited about next week. Got a few things coming up, a couple new different episodes, as well as we're doing my first unboxing. I have some new equipment coming in for shoots that'll be coming up next week. So again, I'm Mike, and this is Edtech Library. Thanks for watching.